Welcome, everyone. My name is Cynthia Ryan, and I have the privilege of serving as chair of IPAC Nova Scotia. On behalf of my colleagues at the Institute of Public Administration of Canada, I'm very pleased to welcome you all here for what will be an exciting panel discussion with some of Nova Scotia's first-time municipal leaders for a midterm check-in. If time allows, we will take a couple of questions from the audience. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you can enter it in the chat on YouTube. Moving things along, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our moderator for our presentation, Jeff Bishop. Jeff joined the Association of Municipal Administrators Nova Scotia in July of this year, taking on the role of Executive Director. For the previous 15 years, Jeff worked with Forest Nova Scotia, a membership-based forest sector association where he was the Executive Director for the last 10 years. With training and background in PR and communications, Jeff's career has taken him from a local school board to United Way Halifax to the Mi'kmaq, Nova Scotia, Canada Tripartite Forum, giving him a depth of experience in the not-for-profit and public sectors. Thanks for moderating tonight, Jeff, and over to you.
Thanks very much, Cynthia. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here this afternoon with this session, getting things kicked off after a tiny little glitch there, but we got things going now. And I want to thank IPAC for inviting me to be your moderator this afternoon. Throughout my career, I've been around folks who have been elected officials, whether it's with school boards, municipal, provincial, federal governments, or First Nations governments here in the province. And so that was what really interested me when I was asked to moderate this afternoon's discussion with, as Cynthia said, a check-in with some of Nova Scotia's folks who are first-time councillors within municipal government here in the province. So I want to thank them for joining us this afternoon as well. And I'll just take a quick second to go through the folks that you'll see appear on the screen here that are going to be joining us for this fireside chat. With us today is Warden Amanda Mombourquette. She is the Warden of Richmond County up in Cape Breton. Councillor Paula Huntley, who is a councillor with the town of Kentville. Councillor William McCormick, a councillor with the town of Digby. Can't even read my own notes today. And Councillor Walter Tingley, who is a councillor with the municipality of East Hants. Welcome, all of you. Thanks for joining us here this afternoon.
Thank you, Jeff.
So I've got, as I said, this is sort of in a fireside chat mode, just relaxed, and we can even be humorous if we need to, especially when I mess up things as we go through. But we'll just, I've got a series of questions we've got here. Folks know that if they have a question that are watching out there on YouTube land, they can pop a question into the comment section, and we should be able to see those pop up on our end, and we'll try and ask those. But I've got a few that we'll start things off with here this afternoon, and I'll just we'll go around the screen and get some responses and feedback from each of you to hear what it's like. You know, what your first few years, or in Walter's case, I believe a year he's been on council now. So let's kick things off. When you decided to run for council, can you recall that moment or event that happened that made you decide you wanted to throw your hat in the ring? So maybe for this one, we'll start with Councillor Huntley.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I certainly do. Although it's only been 2 years, it's still fresh. Besides, in my old world, I was a community driver for programs and, helping many people where I could. But I got to a point where I peaked. And I thought, where do I go now? How do I get this better than what it is, and to expand a little bit? And I thought, the first thing, it has to be, I think, through education in my town, and to know what kind of behind the scenes. And of course, I had many people asking me, was I going to run for council? And I thought, I think that's the point right there. I think they married together, and then that's when I did it. So yeah, I remember it quite well.
Warden Mombourquette, how about you?
So I have to say, it wasn't like a flash in the pan moment for me. Obviously representing Richmond County, our county has had its struggles over the last decade or so. And, having been working in economic development, I worked for regional development agencies, which of course were connected to municipalities, and then with the Chamber of Commerce here locally. It just was becoming more and more difficult to just be on the sidelines and watch things happen in a way that I felt weren't aligned with what I thought was in the best interest of our county. And so when my time at the chamber came to an end and I came here to work at NSCC, I felt like I was in a better position. I was like, as a Chamber of Commerce, you wouldn't want to have an elected official sort of as that employee of the chamber as well. So it was just perfect timing. And I thought to myself, well, I can't continue to complain about what's happening if I don't step up and do something about it. And so that was kind of in that transition moment from the chamber over to the college, and then getting comfortable here. It was just the stars aligned, and I couldn't sit back and watch anymore. I had to put my foot in the water.
Great. Councillor Tingley?
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think mine started maybe with a blow to the head. Well, not really. But I was, and I'm still working for an international claims management company. And my decision to run was really just a spur of the moment decision. I thought about it maybe 25 years ago, but didn't do anything with it. But I was just sitting at home by myself, and I just decided a very short time before the election to run. So I actually run twice, and that's why I just got elected a year ago. The first time I ran was in 2020, and I placed second out of 4 good candidates in that attempt. And I lost to now MLA John McDonald by 39 votes that first time. So when he got elected, we had a by-election, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to run, and it was kind of a spur of the moment thing again. And I decided, it was good fun, even just campaigning the last time. So I thought I'd give it a try. And the next time I ran in 2021, I got almost 50% of the votes out of 4 candidates. And but the bottom line is it was a spur of the moment decision.
Wow.
And Councillor McCormick, what was that moment? Do you recall when you decided to throw your hat in the ring?
I won't say there was a specific moment, because there were also a few people for me who had asked me if I was considering running. I was relatively newly moved to Digby. I've always been in the area, but never in the town proper. And honestly, I think if there was one specific moment, it's when I got approval from the other spot that I work. I work at one of the banks in town. And once they said, yeah, you would be permitted to run, I said, okay, I'm going to. So it was, I guess, the permission to do so, and then, listening to some folks over time, but no one actual specific moment.
So there you go. A few very different examples of what have caused folks to really think about what caused them to put their name on the ballot. The second question I have, over the last couple of years have been challenging in terms of the pandemic and other world events that are happening around us. And no doubt you've been managing a lot as a newly elected official. However, is there any humorous moments that stand out in your memory, a time when you're able to laugh at yourself or share a bit of a laugh with one of your fellow councillors or resident even, that still sticks out in your mind in your time since you've joined council? Maybe this time we'll start with Warden Mombourquette.
So every day, we're brand new, and our council, Jeff, Richmond County didn't return one incumbent to the table. So 5 brand new folks who had never entered politics before. It was the first time I had ever run for anything. I think the same is true of all the other 4 councillors. Suddenly being kind of catapulted from first time going to campaign. This is a lot of fun. I agree. I had a great time campaigning. Then all of a sudden you're elected. Then all of a sudden you're the warden. It was just bizarre. So, but it's been a great learning experience. But I am very serious. There's not a day goes by that I don't trip over something or, just learn something new. If you can't laugh at yourself in this business, go home. Don't come to work, because you have to give yourself the time and space to learn about it. Some moments that stick out for me, I guess, kind of even on the campaign trail, was trying to knock on doors in a safe way during the pandemic, and dogs are coming at you, and there was just no end to the adventure, let's just say. But it was a lot of fun, and just hearing from constituents on the doorsteps. I still look back, and even in the last 2 years, as much as I've enjoyed being elected, I still look back at that campaign time, and I think that's where I had probably the most fun since I've started this, for sure.
Councillor Tingley, anything humorous happened to you along the way on the campaign trail, or since you've been elected as councillor?
Yeah, there's been a few. Here's one. One day I'm working at home, working from home at my other job, and this lady gives me a call. She's a senior citizen, very upset. A motorist had run over a baby raccoon, and the raccoon ended up right in the middle of her driveway. And she was very upset that the raccoon was killed, and she tried to get a hold of Department of Natural Resources and Provincial Public Works and even our municipality, and everybody was steering her somewhere else to deal with the raccoon, and she didn't know what else to do. So she gave me a call, and I'm trying to think about what I should do about it. I ended up calling a couple of these departments myself, and they did the same thing they did to her. They pointed me in other areas, and so I decided to call her back and said, I'll go get the raccoon. And it probably took me about 15 minutes. But that Friday night, when I was playing hockey with my buddies, I was telling them about what happened, and I've been taking a little bit of ribbon about it ever since. But there's been tons of stuff that you wouldn't think a councillor gets involved in or has to deal with, but that's one of them for me.
I think that falls under the other duties as may be assigned on the resume or on the job ad, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Councillor McCormick, anything humorous stick out for you?
Sure. I'm going to go all the way back 2 whole days, and we're going to stick to the topic of raccoons. Because at council the other night, when we were all finished, or just before we were finished, the acting mayor pointed at one of the ladies who was in the crowd, and, well, she was the only one there, and asked her if there was a reason she had come to council. And she pointed at me and said she wanted to have a chat with me. And I didn't really know what it was about. And then as soon as I walk over, she starts handing me pictures of raccoons. And she's telling me the story about the raccoons. And one of them's named Pumpkin. I think the other one was named Buttercup. And keeps going through it. And she's talking to me like we've talked about this dozens of times before. And she said, there, you can have those for your file on the raccoons. I thought it would be helpful. And I looked at her and I said, Gail, I think you think I'm my brother. And then she stopped and she goes, I'm so sorry. She's like, but you can give them to him. That's fine. And yeah, apparently they had been working on a raccoon problem here in town because he works for Public Works. And yes, Pumpkin and Buttercup were very, very well-fed raccoons, and well, had been captured though, so they were going to be relocated. But it was kind of neat because I didn't know where she was going or why she was telling me about raccoons, but she had pictures, so it was interesting.
Great example. Councillor Huntley, anything humorous stick out to you?
Well, probably nothing like that, like those stories for sure. But I do remember when we finally came out of Zoom and we were able to meet. I had just gotten used to Zoom meetings, and I didn't realize how often we used acronyms. So I came from my whole background. There was always acronyms in the company, but after a while, when you work there so long, you get used to them, and sometimes you don't hear them as much. So anyway, the whole week I heard was NSFM, DOJ, MPS, LUB, KTA, PVSC. And I'm like, I remember sitting there and they were looking at me, Paula, you have that deer in the headlight look. I'm like, there must be an easier way that I'm going to be able to learn these acronyms. Of course, we all laughed and we decided we're going to say it out and then we'll say the acronym. And it was great. A week later, I get a Facebook message and it's from a resident who is wondering, she says, I'm not really sure how you feel, Councillor Huntley, but do you think there's a way that you could explain acronyms a little more into the meetings? And I thought, thank gosh, I'm not alone. and every time we see each other now, there's that connect. And she'll say something and go, oh, yes, I remember those days. Yeah, it was good. So those sorts of things, not raccoon related at all. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yes, we all have too many acronyms in our lives, don't we?
Yeah.
Just going to make a quick check and see if there's any comments that have come in from the audience. Nothing to date. So I've got next question that I'll pose. What has surprised you the most about the role so far as you've taken it on? And this time we'll start with Councillor Tingley.
Nothing really has surprised me, although just follow up on what Paula was talking about, the number of acronyms, just the amount that I've had to learn in the last year about the Municipal Government Act and your municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws, and it's just endless. And the things that a municipality are dealing with now, the housing crisis, climate change, inflation is impacting municipalities. Mm-hmm. Just the amount of stuff there is to learn. Councillors read, research, learn a lot from other councillors and staff, and they listen and just practice to do their best. It's a lot of work, but it's also a great privilege and it's very rewarding. So maybe just the volume of information there is to learn very quickly in order to be effective at all might be a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Great. Councillor McCormick, your thoughts?
I think I'll go with, two things. One, how annoying the provincial government is. Sorry, we'll skip that one and go maybe to just the number of things that a town, and especially on the size of Digby, like a little more than 2,000 people, the number of different committees and things that the town is involved with. I didn't realize the scope of municipal government, because I always thought about it as the smallest form of government. You've got the federal government, provincial government, and then the municipalities and towns, but they definitely have a role to play in so much, and didn't realize that from water to waste and everything in between, that there's a lot that the town is responsible for and involved in.
Great. And Councillor Huntley, what surprised you the most?
I think one of the biggest things is I didn't realize how much of a voice we had. I never realized the connect between municipal and provincial. Or, you often wonder, provincial and federal, obviously, they have as much on their plate, if not more, than we do. But, there's times that they really do hear you. And that surprised me for sure. But the amount of, and I'll tag on to, what Councillor McCormick was saying about, committees. I had no idea when they hit the table, which ones that were, we get to, to represent. I didn't even know there was that many in the town. I'll be honest with you. You might read something in the paper, you hear it on the radio, but when it's all laid out in front of you, it's quite overwhelming. So, you have to think about whether you would be, running in a large city or a small town. There's the same amount of things that you have to do. Transit is transit. Wow, I tell you, it really opened my eyes. And I guess I was amazed at how quickly you have to educate yourself on especially when you're new. And I know I joke about the acronyms, but until you type that acronym in, or start reading books about it, you don't get it. You don't get about a bylaw, because if you weren't in a government or economic development role before, I came from 40 years of retail management with large box store, so obviously completely different scope of a business. And wow, I was the deer in the headlight for a long time, for sure. And now I'm into my 2 years. Of course, I've went through COVID as well with everybody else. But I was blessed in one way, because there was 3 of us who were new that made it to that got elected, but then there was 3 who got reelected. So there's often times that I can, call them or lean over and go, okay, give me the short version so I can, get my head wrapped around it. And they'll go, oh yes, last time we were in, we talked about. I'm like, okay. So I'm lucky that way, but wow, total learning for sure. Yeah.
And Warden Mombourquette, what's surprised you?
Well said, Walter, William, and Paula. Scope. So much to learn and so much to do. You're right. It's people don't really realize. And me, I have a 25-year career in economic development, working directly with municipalities. I still didn't realize the breadth of things that we were involved in. Because there's just so much. But I think to kind of diverge from that a little bit is the thing that has surprised me the most is how important relationships are to make your municipality function effectively. The relationships between the councillors, when there's a lack of respect at the table, which certainly, in my opinion, was a problem in Richmond County in the past. Councils became very ineffective when there was a lack of respect between council and staff. So those relationships are key. And I think one of the things I would say to any first-time councillor would be make sure you educate yourself on what all of the work to do by staff, all of the things that council needs to be involved in, because without that understanding and understanding where people are coming from, you can quickly end up going down that road of them and us kind of thing, right? And that's where you see councils becoming divisive and municipalities becoming ineffective. So I'm so glad. I feel like we're on a right path here in our county, and it feels pretty darn good.
Great, thanks, Warden. And we've got a great question. I think that's a bit of a segue from that that's come in through the comments from our watchers out there. The question says, the huge volume of information that councillors have to read and understand, are there lenses that you use to filter through the information as you are working towards making decisions? Are there certain things that you as they say, lenses really that you do put on to view that information, that you make sure you're considering things through that lens as you have discussions at council? Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll start this one with Warden Mombourquette.
So sure. I mean, I think that question is a little bit subjective, because I think it depends a little bit on what your background is. For me, anyways, when I'm looking at Kalinda's question, I'm thinking probably my lens is obviously going to be economic development when it relates, when we talk about housing, how that impacts our communities, not just for our most vulnerable citizens, but our community's ability to prosper, because employees have affordable places to live. When we think about healthcare, same deal. So that tends to be the lens I approach it with. And that's heavily, heavily influenced by my background. But I'll tell you that that social well-being is certainly, like prior to my time as a councillor, that lens of social well-being, it definitely wasn't as high and front and center in my mind as it is now, because I think as a municipal councillor, you immediately hear from the people who are most vulnerable, who are most in need. And so that's definitely another filter that's sort of on equal footing for me. But great question.
Right. Councillor Tingley, is there a particular filter or point of view that you make sure you're looking at information through as you're making decisions with council?
Yes, I try to refer to all the documents and rules and statute laws and everything that we need to follow in order to be effective. Our Municipal Government Act is the Bible that we follow, and it basically starts out by saying that the purpose of a municipality is to provide good government, provide services, facilities, and other things that, in the opinion council, deem necessary and desirable for the municipality. There's tons of things that come up on a monthly basis that you have to deal with, dealing with financing and planning and everything from unsightly, dangerous properties, that sort of thing. So I just try to learn the rules of engagement, how we're supposed to operate, and deal with everything in that way, and provide the promptest and most accurate service I can.
Great. And how about you, Councillor McCormick?
I think going back to the question, if what's the lens I'm using to filter information, it's actually the lenses in the eyes of our CAO and the town staff. Because I know that if there's anything that is of the utmost importance to the town, that they bring it to our attention. They make sure that it's a topic that we're ready to discuss and go over. So have to trust them, because there's just a huge amount of information and news that's out there. And surprisingly, a lot of it will actually relate to even a small place like Digby. So it's key to, use the lens and listen to what they tell you is important, and then take in what else. I try my best anyway to take in what I can for media, but never to overdo it, because there's no end to it. So I trust the folks at the town, but specifically the CAO and his executive assistant.
Yeah,
I 100% agree with that, William.
Yes. Yeah.
And Councillor Huntley, anything from your point of view, the lenses you use?
Well, I hate to keep saying that I'm new, because it's only 2 years, but I am new and it's only 2 years. However, first of all, I'm a person who loves data. So depending on what the discussion is, or what's going around the round table at council at the time, yes, there's a lot to read. And sometimes, at one point, you can only absorb so much. Your brain starts to go in overload. And I'm the type of person who sometimes I just have to make my own notes as I read. Then I have to walk away and kind of let it sink in. And I think 9 chances out of 10, sometimes I meet twice a week with my CAO, whether it's in the office or, and I pull on their perspective of things. And not that I'm going to agree with it, but I think it's all about education. So I'll just say an example. Yes, we all have housing issues, and but for me, under housing, I thought, well, why not start at the top? It's kind of like the back to basics. Where do I start first? And of course, I decided to speak to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. So where are you guys starting, and how does it trickle down? And it gives me a platform of where else to start. And that's kind of how I learn. And I could probably be in 3 meetings and never say anything. But once the 4th meeting hits, I was like, okay, I'm now ready to have a voice and feel at least educated on the topic. And that's really how I break my lens down for whatever's on the table. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Councillor.
Welcome.
Next one is a little bit more light. Let's just say that. So if you had a genie appear before you and could grant you one wish for the community you represent, what would you ask for? A little outside the box, so we'll just take a second. And I'll warn Councillor McCormick that he's going to be up first on this one.
I'm good.
You're good? You're good?
Yep.
You head right off into that. What's your one wish for your community?
All right, I am taking double gas tax for life for Digby. That's my one, genie wish right there. hopefully there's some provincial folks who are on the line listening to this. But that's it. Double gas tax for life.
Interesting.
Wow.
That's a good one. Councillor Huntley, over to you. What's your one?
Oh my God, so much, right? I think, you know what? I'd love to be able to have whatever buildings we have here, I'd love them to be already retrofitted and someone has taken care of it for me so I can move ahead with my plans. I think that's where I'd start. And I know it all comes back to cash. However, if the genie could take care of that for me, I'd be most grateful. Yeah.
There you go. Seems to be a trend. There you go. And Warden Mombourquette, what's your one wish?
For my community, right? So if I think about District 4 in Richmond County, it's kind of like St. Peter's, River Bourgeois, down towards Sampsonville, that area. I would love to see in St. Peter's and the area a really connected trail system. It's been a passion of mine since day one. Having a backbone of that multi-use shared trail system and then other spokes off of it, from mountain biking and hiking and you name it. I just have this vision for Richmond County being connected to the whole rest of Cape Breton Island and Nova Scotia through a wonderful trail system.
Nice.
I really, if I had a genie though for the region, because I can't leave without saying this, we would be the clean fuels capital of Atlantic Canada. There's lots of attention on the Strait right now. If I could make one thing happen, that would be it, because that will generate, I think, so much more capacity for us to be able to do all those other cool things and necessary things that we need to be doing. So,
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Warden. Councillor Tingley, if you had that genie, what are you going to ask for?
The one thing I would ask for is just to continue to increase public engagement and volunteerism. We're probably like every other community. We were built through volunteers and the people in the community. I'll just speak to the one district that I'm in here. Lance had a large employer, Shaw Brick, and Shaw Brick and their employees were heavily involved in building practically everything we have here. A lot of our sports facilities, ball fields, soccer, hockey, curl. The curling is being held in the hockey rink. The church, our pool, many things that are here. And a lot of the residents were heavily involved through volunteerism, driving these things, working at getting these projects done. I just like to see it continue to increase, to have the people involved and volunteer, because what really makes the community is the people that are in the community having their say about what they want to happen with their community.
Great.
Jeff, can I add on something there?
Sure.
I absolutely love the talk about volunteers, but I think at some point, because it's hard to get volunteers sometimes because people's lives are so busy, but I think we should be looking at a volunteer mentoring another volunteer, because we could have one volunteer who's been at it for 25 years, and now we're bringing in somebody new who wants to be a volunteer who's never done it before. I think there's a lot of knowledge that mentor could share that would help continue to grow the community. And that way, then they can recruit people. It's like, this is what I've learned. I can't believe I'm just loving this. And I think then the word of mouth starts to work. I think we have I think there's such a benefit there for mentoring. Yeah.
Great idea. We need to raise that next level of volunteerism within our communities, and lots of folks, they volunteer with different not-for-profit organizations, but maybe don't recognize, the activism that they can take within their own community to build their own home community, the roles that are out there. And so that's a great thought, Councillor Huntley on mentoring folks into that role of volunteering right there at home, quite literally, right?
Yeah.
So we're getting close to 4 o'clock and wanting to be respectful of everybody's time. I know, Councillor Huntley, I saw you look at the clock. Isn't it amazing how we've glided through this fireside chat with relative ease and only minor technical hiccups. So I think for my last question, we'll circle things back as we. As I said at the outset, you've been sort of in your role for 1 or 2 years on council. And the question I'll go to here at the end is, what's one thing that you'd like to accomplish before the end of your first term? And maybe for this one, we'll go back and I'll start things with Councillor Huntley on this one.
Well, again, I'm sure we all have many things on our plate that we could pick, but I think I would like to talk about being a leader with accessibility. And I think that, you tie that into whether it's new bills, adding on to the trails you have, I think, I always say this, when COVID hit, before that, we always talked about think outside the box. Well, I don't think there's a box anymore. I think now it's allowed people to be more creative. And it's almost like anything goes, and people start to add on other ideas. And I think when it comes to accessibility, I think the sky's the limit. And I think that's where I would love to be a leader in that for sure. Yeah.
Great. Warden Mombourquette?
Oh, all right. Good, great question. And Paula, yes to the accessibility angle. We do so much work on that here in Richmond County now, and it's probably one of the most active committees in our region. But if I was going to vary from that, I think I would kind of go back to sort of that economic development piece, because I look at all the things that we want to do. In Richmond County, we want to be developing better housing. We want to be supporting more community groups. We invest very heavily in health-related activities in our county as well, and we can't do that unless we have a growing tax base. So that would be, where I would put my effort, would be to really focus on growing the tax base. We have an incredible asset in our county called Point Tupper, which lies right along the Strait of Canso, the deepest ice-free harbor in North America. And, the opportunity that we're seeing now from folks, from industry partners, developers who are wanting to capture the power of the wind, both on and offshore to create, green fuels and ammonia and all kinds of technologies that are going to reduce our carbon footprint, get us off of fossil fuels. To see Richmond County become a leader in that sector, I think would be probably the ultimate success that I would be able to point to when we're, looking after our climate and our environmental and our geopolitical responsibilities. I think that would be just an amazing thing to look forward to.
Great. And Councillor Tingley.
One thing I'd like to accomplish. There's no one item. Basically, everything is important. We have a ton of development going on in our municipality. A lot going on with parks and recreation and culture. Just a ton of stuff going on. I guess if there's one thing I'd like to accomplish is just to have really good open line of communication with residents and be very prompt and accurate with every activity and service that I provide.
Great. And the last word on this question, Councillor McCormick, one thing you'd like to accomplish before you wrap up your first term?
Can I say paint the cupboards behind me that have ticket on them, or because that
personal goal? It's a bit more personal.
Okay. Well, I'm actually that's a comment about the house, so I'm going to say housing for our area. And what I'd like to be able to accomplish is having some meaningful conversation input and then eventual output in terms of adding locations to, to our housing stock here in Digby, because we need them. We need them in a bad way. And whether that's working with developers or government or some nonprofits in between, we need to do something either around the town or within closely in the municipality with respect to housing for here, and also making sure there's affordable housing that's in and amongst that.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. With us today again, we have had Warden Amanda Mombourquette with the Richmond County, Councillor William McCormick of the town of Digby, Councillor Paula Huntley with the town of Kentville, and Councillor Walter Tingley with the municipality of East Hants. As I said earlier, I have a great amount of respect for folks who put their name on a ballot and step forward to lead in their home community. So thank you for taking that on, and best of luck as you work the rest of the way through your first term. I'll say first term because you're still hoping that there's a second term for everybody as you go forward. And I will hand things back from here to Cynthia Ryan to wrap things up on behalf of IPAC. Cynthia?
Thanks, Jeff. And thank you, everyone. I wish we had a few more hours to continue the chat and maybe see William get his cupboards painted, but we'll have to call it a day here. And on behalf of IPAC Nova Scotia, I hope everyone who tuned in enjoyed this event and all the discussion. Just a quick apology for our early technical difficulties, but you'll find the stream of this video on YouTube. So if you're watching it after the fact, I hope you also enjoyed it. And thanks for your attention and your questions. A huge thank you to Jeff and our panelists for the insights into your first term. Can't wait to see what happens over the next couple of years. And a final reminder, if you haven't become a member of IPAC, consider joining. We have some more events coming up this year, and there will be lots of in-person networking and more panel talks like you've got here today. So we look forward to meeting you and seeing you at our next event, and have a great rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks.